What is going on, world? What's up, YouTube? It's Zero here. Today I'm bringing you guys a brand new episode of the 8 Below Show. Welcome everyone to 8 Below. I'm really excited to have you all here today. We are going to be talking all about Gears of War in this episode of the 8 Below Show, which, guys, we are already on episode 4 of the 8 Below Show. And guys, if you're new to the show, welcome. What we do on this show, guys, is we talk about everything in the world of gaming, particularly usually one game. Each episode we talk about the current state of the game, things that we're enjoying, things that we aren't, and just breaking down everything within the world of that game as well as the eSports side of that game, if of course an esport is relevant to that specific title. So we're going to be talking here today about Gears of War, and I've got a lot of things to talk about it, so let's get into it. So guys, the first thing I want to talk about today is the current state of Gears 5, which of course is the newest addition to the Gears of War franchise. And I gotta say, guys, that the current state of the game could certainly be better. I know that there is a ton of backlash around different portions of the game, different things within the game that people just are not enjoying whatsoever, or they just think that there's way too many microtransactions that are involved inside of the game. Lots of complaining going around the Gears community, and I gotta say, guys, that being a part of the Gears of War community, the Gears community certainly, and there's no exception to any, lots of games have this, so I'm not gonna say that Gears 5's community or just Gears of War's community in general is generally like this or the only ones that are like this, but there's a lot of complaining that goes on pretty much every time there's a new Gears of War game that comes out. The Gears community usually finds things to complain about, and that's just something that happens. I know with Call of Duty that's the same thing, as well as many other games that are out there. I know Fortnite is definitely the victim to a lot of backlash regardless of what they do in each update that come out. But that being said, let's break down the current state of Gears 5 and what my personal opinion on it really is at this point. So, guys, I've got to say that the current state of Gears, it certainly could be better. I also think, though, that there is a real lack of content. Now, what I will say about the game in general, because I give you kind of my overview of the game, is that this is a very good game overall. So when I'm saying that, I'm talking about the campaign, which I thought was really great. Now, I'm not going to say that it was the greatest Gears campaign of all time, but I'm going to say, it's certainly the best looking. It's one of the best looking games I've ever played on Xbox, period, up to this point. And I will say that the campaign did have some risks that were taken. The coalition definitely decided, hey, let's take a little bit of some risk here with this game, and they certainly did that in the campaign. Because in Gears of War 4, a lot of people said they weren't really doing a whole heck of a lot when it came to, taking risk in that game, and that's why kind of people felt was a mediocre entry into the series. Now, what I will say is this. When it comes to Gears of War 4, I felt that the campaign was very, with all the hype that was being built around it, I thought that it was very underwhelming. However, I thought the multiplayer was the best in the entire franchise. I thought the multiplayer was very well done. I love the addition to escalation as far as in the eSports realm of things. So I thought that the multiplayer was great. I really enjoyed watching people play the multiplayer. I enjoyed playing the multiplayer, and then I liked watching the pros playing it, of course, as well. So now we get to Gears 5, which in this entry, and for those of you wondering, Gears of War 3 is my favorite Gears game of all time. I would say Gears of War 2 is number 2, and I would now say that Gears 5 takes the third spot. And here's some of my reasoning why I enjoyed it. And like I said, the campaign, obviously. I like, with any game, guys, when I'm buying a video game, okay, and you're paying whatever it might be, $60 for the game, for a AAA title is generally the cost, so like $59.99 plus some tax. You want a full package. At least that's what I want. And when I say a full package, guys, I'm talking campaign, co-op modes, as well as multiplayer. So you have a full package there. So it's like you can play the campaign, and if the campaign's really good, you can of course go back and try to, get all of the, basically try to find different things within the world, or you can, kind of play it over again, play it on a harder difficulty. And then when it comes to the, multiplayer, that's what's going to keep you coming back. And so that's the most important thing really in any game, I believe, because that's what's going to bring people back to the game. And then, of course, a co-op mode, like let's just say when we're talking about Gears of War, for example, we're talking about Horde mode, which I think is really great. The escape mode also, guys, doing things with other people, I think is very important for any game. Having a co-op mode, obviously, having people to play with on multiplayer is really important as well. But I think having a full package includes having co-op modes that you can either play by yourself or play even better with other people. And so Gears 5, when they released it, I thought, wow, this is a full package. We're getting a full package here. You're getting a campaign, which is one of the most immersive campaigns they've ever made in Gears of War, probably the most immersive. Obviously, semi-open world, which I really liked that aspect of it as well. And then number 2, you've got some co-op modes. You've got Horde mode. You've got a new mode called Escape mode, which they're going to be, consistently updating over time. And then, of course, the famous multiplayer modes. So overall, when I went into this, I was thinking to myself, you know what? The state of the game, we'll get to that, but right now I like what I'm seeing as far as having all of these different ways in which you can connect and play Gears 5. So like I said, guys, the campaign I thought was very good. I would say it's about the third best in the series. The one thing, guys, I like playing as Kate Diaz, but I'm not going to lie. There's something about playing Marcus, and there was even something about playing as JD, which was, of course, Marcus's son. I liked that aspect in Gears of War 4. It was kind of like he was passing the torch, Marcus was passing the torch over to JD, and we were taking the helm or taking, the role of JD Phoenix moving forward, and then they switched it over to Kate Diaz. Which I'm not saying is a bad thing, because I think Kate Diaz is an absolute badass. She is absolutely incredible, incredible character. And I liked a lot of the story arcs. I liked some of the decisions that you have to make in the game, which we are going to get into some spoilers here, guys, regarding the campaign. So, if you don't want to hear the spoilers, I'm assuming most of you probably have already played the campaign through at least once. So we're going to get into a little bit of some spoilers with Gears 5, because we're going to be talking later on in the show about the future of Gears of War and where maybe they could go with the franchise. But that being said, Kate Diaz just isn't really, I don't know. I like her as a side character, a character that we can maybe play in multiplayer, or, you maybe play a couple of missions as her if that's part of her story development. But there was something about JD that I really liked, and something I really like, of course, about Marcus. And, I understand that it was a matter of time until Marcus would pass the torch, and then a matter of time until JD would probably pass the torch as well. But at the same time, I just kind of felt that it was too soon to be moving on from JD. And the kind of where they're taking his character, I didn't really like it that much. They really kind of took his character in this, douchebag type of role in the game, where it really feels like he's just kind of an asshole. And I just didn't really like that. I mean, I understand the reasoning behind it, but I just didn't like how they made him seem like a total douche. Like, oh yeah, you guys definitely don't want to play as this guy anymore. You want to play as Kate Diaz. And then obviously a lot of the rumors were revolving around, oh, she's going to be the next Swarm Queen, so we're probably not going to play as her forever anyway. And then, of course, as we know, in the end, she's obviously not the Swarm Queen. But so that was kind of bothersome to me, at least when it came to the campaign, with the way they treated JD's character. And then at the end of the game, you got to choose between JD and Del, which one you're going to kill, as, of course, Kate's mother, the Swarm Queen, or the new Swarm Queen, decides to basically has both of them in custody, and you have to decide which one to kill. And so for me, I decided to kill Del, because I thought a part of canon, at least in the future, and this is kind of even a conversation probably for another day, but in canon, which in the Gears universe, I don't think that they want JD dead. I think that they would, Del is a side character, but I mean, obviously he has his role in the story. I just think that I would assume, it'll be interesting to see where they go with this in Gear 6, but I do think that Dell will be the one that that is actually dead and JD is still alive. But that being said, that's really another discussion for another day. Overall, though, guys, the campaign I thought was great. I thought that, like I said, they did a really good job with that open world setting. I think they're going to, or semi-open world. I think they're going to be going full open world in the future, which I think that'll be really cool to explore as well. So I'll say it's probably the third best campaign out of all of them, behind Gears of War 3 and Gears of War 2. Now we get to the Horde as well as the escape modes. So Horde is obviously great. I think it feels great. I like the Horde mode once again in this game. I think it did really well. And I think it still is doing well to this day with all the updates and such. I think it's still pretty good. So the current state of Horde mode, I think, is great. Escape mode is that newest game mode. I think that's kind of just one of those modes that we're going to kind of have to get, used to almost, as far as, within the game. I think it's a cool concept. I don't know. Is it going to, stand the test of time when it comes to Gear 6 and then into Gear 7? I don't know. But I will say that I do enjoy... I do enjoy the escape mode. I miss beast mode, which was in Gears of War 3, where you played as the Swarm, and it was kind of like a role reversal. I really liked that concept. This is a neat concept as well. Let me know what you guys think about escape mode in the comment section below. But then we get to multiplayer. And this is where everyone is complaining about Gears of War, or just Gears 5, right? That this is it's broken, that there's just no real balance, and the maps aren't good, just basically the microtransactions are ridiculous, all kinds of different backlash that came out from the community regarding the multiplayer of Gears of War, which of course is this is the main mode. This is what everybody is really here to play in Gears of War. So Gears 5 comes out. I'm going to say this, guys. The Gears 5 maps are, I believe that there is the backlash behind, and even though it's not as severe about the maps, I think the maps are great. I love the maps in Gears 5 as far as the multiplayer maps are concerned. I think they're great. They're fun to watch, in my opinion. That they're fun to watch when it comes to the eSports side of things. They're just fun to play as well. So the maps, I disagree with the community on those. I do think the maps are good. Now, are they perfect? I mean, obviously not. I think there are going to need to be, changes over time, or, just, some weapon balancing, whatever it might be. Now, when we're talking about just, let's kind of talk about some of the weapons and such that are within Gears 5. I mean, some people were talking about, the weapon balancing and how those aren't really good. I kind of disagree with that as well. I feel like it feels good. I think the movement feels the flow of the movement feels really good. I think that I feel like things are relatively balanced. I'm not going to say that anything's perfect, but once again, like the maps, it's not perfect, but it still feels like Gears. You move around like, as in other Gears titles. The wall bouncing feels pretty good as well. So I just can't complain about those things. Here's what I'm going to complain about. Microtransactions, we're going to get to that in a sec. But the re-up system. Guys, it very well, I'm gonna say this. It is the worst re-up system in any Gears game, period. It's the worst. And I don't even think it's close. Now I'll tell you why. I know a lot of people don't really care about maybe the re-up system. To some people is, we're just, we kind of just rank up. We just play the game just to play the game for fun. And a lot of casual gamers will just play the game and just rank up, and then they'll re-up, and it's not a big deal about, what items they get and so on and so forth. They just play the game for fun. Because really in-game, it doesn't necessarily matter like a game like Call of Duty, because basically you have your normal weapons that everybody else has, and then you have the power weapons on the maps. So it's not like you're able to just customize different guns with different attachments, kind of like in Call of Duty or something. So, but that being said, guys, the re-up system is just terrible, guys. I mean, the fact of the matter that they didn't really give anyone. Now, I think that this is gonna, they'll probably update this over time, but something that really is close to my heart when it comes to Gears, games like Call of Duty, StarCraft, I mean, pretty much every game when you're talking about multiplayer, you want to get stuff. You want to get items. You want to unlock stuff, whether that be, new emblems, new titles, new, weapon skins, all those different things. Well, they don't really give you anything for re-upping in Gears 5, and then you don't even have an emblem that shows you what re-up you're on. It's just like a blue, flame circle, and underneath of it, it'll have in Roman numerals, I for obviously re-up 1, and then, 2, 3, all the way up to whatever re-up, if they've added more re-ups at this point, I'm not sure, but there's nothing cool about it. And when you're in the lobbies against people, they don't have an emblem that represents what re-up you're on to kind of showing off your progress. Because a lot of times, guys, what makes things so cool about these games when you're talking about having those emblems and such next to your name when you're in lobbies, people that are going up against you, they may look at those things and, see, oh man, he's on his 10th re-up. This guy's put a lot of time into this game. We might, be in trouble. Or they might look at it and see what the KD ratios are. Things of that nature show other people your hard work, your time you've put into the game. And so that is my biggest issue by far in Gears 5 when it comes to the multiplayer side of things. The re-up system is totally broken in my opinion, and I think that it's really unfortunate because Gears of War 4 I felt had some pretty cool re-up emblems, even though they were relatively the same overall. I still thought it was kind of cool, different colored variants of, within each emblem, I guess you could say, as you're ranking up. The wings in Gears of War 3 were the best, and it's not even close. They should have continued the whole wings thing. I don't know why they didn't. Now, the camos, of course, are sick, but I think Gears of War 4's camos were better than Gears 5. I don't know. It's hard to say. Maybe Gears 5 will add more and more as we go. But think about this. The items that you get upon re-upping, all that hard work to get up to the, level 100, to re-up, and you get basically nothing as far as items are concerned. Now, they may change these things. There's a good chance that they will, because I know in Gears of War 4, they did change some of those things. So let's hope that they do that. But I gotta say, guys, that is the most bothersome thing to me. Okay, even more than the microtransactions. Because getting to microtransactions, guys, those are things that don't necessarily bother me as much as a lot of people, because I just don't buy the microtransactions. The only microtransactions that I'm interested in buying are the ones in which you pay for them and it goes towards the prize pool for the eSports side of things. So Gears eSports, if I buy some of these really cool weapon skins, a portion of that money will go towards the prize pool for Gears eSports. And I like things like that because it's kind of supporting the scene. It's also supporting the developers, but it's supporting the scene as a whole. And I like those things way more than just buying cosmetic items that really don't mean anything. I would rather earn things in-game and show those things off than buying cosmetic items that really just don't mean anything. It's just digital stuff. I like things that I'm earning and trying to gain over time. So that's just my opinion on microtransactions. I also don't, I've said this in the past, guys, I don't really have a problem with microtransactions, because if that's what it takes for developers to continue making games for us, in a specific series, let's just say Gears of War or, Call of Duty or something, for them to be able to do those things and actually have the money to do it, or I guess that motivation to continue doing it, if it takes microtransactions, I find it, it's okay. I just think that it needs to be done in a way in which is not, you're not really being deceptive to the consumer. So, for example, or, being deceptive, but, or also just those loot boxes, a lot of times you don't get the things that you want in them. And so those are obviously a huge issue, but also, I don't like things that give you a competitive advantage. And I know we don't have anything like that really with Gears 5, but just games in general. Those are things that bother me significantly when we talk about, microtransactions in a game. So overall, guys, the current state of Gears 5. Do I think it's like the end of times? Like, oh, Gears of War is now going to get canceled. Like, they're not going to make a Gears 6, a Gears 7. I think that is absolutely ludicrous. I think they're certainly going to make another, Gears 6 as well as Gears 7. And I think the Coalition has their work cut out for them. They just have to continue trying to update things and make things as good of an experience as possible for us in the Gears of War community. So I will say that the current state of Gears it's not great. It's not terrible though either. It's a little bit in between, and hopefully it gets better with time. This leads me into how I got into Gears of War as a franchise. And so, guys, I got into Gears many years ago when the Xbox 360 first came out. I really wanted to buy the 360, so I saved my money one summer. This job I was working at my locally in a university. For a summer job, I was there. They have like these summer conferences. And so what I ended up doing was I worked a full summer at this university and saved the money. And I went to the store. I went to Walmart to purchase my very first Xbox 360. Well, it just so happened that the 360 came with Gears of War, the original Gears of War. And so I bought that game, and it was, really just bought the bundle, right? Bought the bundle. Brought it home, put that thing in, and I was hooked on Gears of War ever since. I was hooked on the game. I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. The graphics are so good. And obviously, I'd been playing on the original Xbox, so games obviously were fun, Halo 1, Halo 2, there were games on there, Medal of Honor, Rising Sun. There was a number of games I played on the original Xbox that were fun. Graphics, I was like, wow, some of the graphics are really great. But then once we moved over to the Xbox 360, the graphics were better. It was so much more crystal clear. And I was so excited when I was playing Gears of War for the first time. And I remember it actually froze on me a number of times, and I was thinking, man, is it the game or is it my Xbox? And so it ended up being the Xbox, so I had to go back to the store, get a new Xbox. It was a complete and utter nightmare for me, but anyway, finally got everything up and running. And that was kind of back in the day when Xbox 360 had a number of issues, Red Ring of Death, just tons of different issues. But anyways, that's what got me into Gears of War, was that first game. Now, I didn't play the multiplayer or anything along those lines until we got to Gears of War 3 is where I really started getting into the multiplayer. I was really up to that point strictly into campaign modes when it came to most games. I was really into just playing campaign, playing the story modes, and that's what I was really into. And with Gears of War, it was no exception. I was very much so into the story element of the game. I thought that it was next to none, one of the best stories I'd ever played, and even to this day, one of the best games, campaign modes I've ever played, ever. It's just such a rich and engaging narrative, dark and gritty, and that's what I just absolutely loved about it. Got to Gears of War 3, and that's where things changed, where I was, fully immersed into playing multiplayer as well as the campaign, and then of course, the Beast mode and the Horde mode, and just all these different modes that you could play, and I just absolutely fell in love with the franchise. I fell in love in Gears of War 1, that built into Gears 2, and then Gears of War 3 is really what took me to that next level, and I was like, man, this is just incredible. Then of course came what I consider the dark ages of Gears, which was when we got Gears of War Judgment. And what ended up happening was when that game came out, obviously, I actually didn't even play it right away. I took a long time before I even started playing the game because I saw the reviews for it. I thought that it was just like people saying it was like almost like a Horde simulator in the campaign, and I was not feeling that. So I just went back to Gears of War 3 and amongst other games I was playing at the time. So Gears of War Judgment, I did play it, and it really was what everyone was saying it was just basically the campaign was almost like a Horde simulator as you're playing just like waves of enemies throughout the course of the campaign, which really bothered me. Then, of course, we got the Ultimate Edition, which was the first game from the Coalition, because all the games up to that point have been made by Epic Games, which I thought Epic Games did a great job. Then, of course, the Coalition takes over Ultimate Edition. Didn't play much Ultimate Edition, because it was kind of like, I'd already played the original games and such. But then came Gears of War 4. And that's where I really, got back into the series fully. And, of course, then with Gears 5, that's only just continued. So that's kind of how I got into this franchise, into this series, and I gotta say, guys, it's one of my favorite series of all time. I will play every single Gears of War game that comes out in the future. The other thing I like about it is that it's not a game that comes out every year like Call of Duty. Like, Call of Duty is kind of like special to me because it comes out every year. Gears of War, I'm glad that it's not like that. I like that it's, few years in between, and then I have the other games that I really enjoy that are much longer, like we're talking like StarCraft, between StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2 was 10 years. StarCraft 2 now to possibly a StarCraft 3, it might be another 10 years. It might, who knows how long it's going to be. But that's what I enjoy about Gears, is that now that we have Gears 5, we have all these years until Gears 6 will probably come out, and that's exciting and reassuring that, hey, we're just gonna, we just gotta keep up with the game. Hopefully that the developers care enough that they'll, be updating the game, making it how we want it. And so I believe personally that the future of Gears is bright. It's just, there's obviously going to be roadblocks. You just got to kind of get around those. And I think that's what the Coalition will certainly do. And I think that they've got a real gem of a franchise to continue building on for the future. But that's how I got into the game, guys. I would love to hear from you guys. If you guys are really big into Gears of War, how did you guys get into the franchise? Let me know in the comment section below. So where will the Gears of War story go from Gears 5? Let's talk about it. So guys, at the end of Gears of War 5, or Gears 5, we know that, obviously spoilers here, guys. I had said earlier on that we were going to be doing spoilers, but spoiler warning here, guys. You have to make the decision between either killing Del or JD. And then from there, the story essentially ends with, of course, the Swarm Queen, and obviously the Swarm as a whole. After you utilize the Hammer of Dawn, there is still an obvious urge that they need to go after the Swarm head on and really end this thing once and for all. And I think what this sparked was another trilogy, which we're going to be taking the helm, I believe, in Gear 6 with Kate once again. I'm not sure with canon who is going to survive, that being JD or Del. But that being said, I think that the story is going to continue them going after the Swarm. I would assume personally that they, obviously there's going to be new units and new Swarm, characters that we have to go up against. I'd love to see like a General Rom 2.0, like something, really, like a real sidekick to the Swarm Queen. I think that would be very interesting. But I do think, guys, that in Gear 6, it's going to continue this, and it's going to, they're going to continue chasing after the Hive, going after the Hive and trying to take out the Swarm as we know it. And then I think, of course, in Gear 7, that will finish and wrap up. And I think that there's going to be a lot of sad moments along the way, like will Marcus Phoenix die? Will, some of these other characters die, like Baird or Cole? Some of these guys, there's going to be more decisions that have to be made because they kind of hinted or alluded at it within Gears 5, because you had to make a choice, a very difficult one, between Del and JD as to which one were you going to kill. And that being said, I gotta say that I love where this is going, because at the end of Gears 5, it was like, look, it's pretty much only beginning. We won this battle, but the war is going to continue raging onwards. And so the team is together to take on, the Swarm Queen. And I mean, I do think, guys, that I would be surprised if they say at the end of Gear 6 or at the end of Gear 7 that there's actually going to be more Gears of War games. I just don't know if they're going to continue it at that point. It's very hard to say, but that being said, nonetheless, I'm excited to see the process, right, unfold before our eyes and to really see like where they go with it. to an extent, I feel like, are they milking this series too much? And that's been a big question that a lot of people have been talking about and debating about. And I don't really know, because Gears of War 3 was technically the end of the trilogy, and then Gears of War Judgment kind of went back in time. You know, so it's kind of hard for me, at least, to say whether or not they're really milking the series. Maybe they aren't. Maybe they're continuing, because if you look at like Call of Duty, we get a new Call of Duty every single year. So that being said, are they milking Call of Duty? I mean, probably not. Maybe a little bit, but it seems like they're making new games consistently, and they're all different from one another, and I think that's really great. With Gears of War, I want to see them continue. I want them to see them continue the series and continue the story, continue the multiplayer, continue the eSports side, continue everything that we enjoy about Gears of War. It gives us years upon years of playing these games, and that's exciting. So that being said, where is Gears 6 headed? It's really hard to say. I think the biggest question is JD or Dell? Which one is alive, or which one, is dead? And that's going to be a big question, guys, when we're moving into Gears of War 6. And then, of course, into Gear 7. We'll have to beat Gear 6 to see what happens in Gear 7. All we do know is that there's going to be a Gear 6 and a Gear 7, because those have been confirmed. But where do you guys think the series is going? Where do you think it's heading? Do you think Kate is still going to end up becoming the Swarm Queen at the end of Gear 6, and then we have to take her out in Gear 7? It all comes full circle. That is a huge question, guys, because I would think it would be very interesting to see us play as Kate, and then Kate ends up as the Swarm Queen, and then we become JD again, or maybe Marcus, and then you got to go after her in Gear 7 and take out the Hive for all they're worth and end it once and for all. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. The next thing I want to talk about, guys, is Gears of War eSports. And so I have been, a big fan of Gears eSports, and for many people, I think Gears eSports is one of those eSports that is very hectic. It's so much trash talk that goes on in the Gears eSports scene. I think it's very unique for eSports, but I think it's a very good thing to have, as far as within eSports, having a game like Gears of War where there's a ton of trash talk and just epic games. Just absolutely epic games that you can watch and just witness. I find that to be very fun. Now, that being said, guys, I actually believe that Gears eSports is incredibly underrated. And it's ludicrous. I really do. This really leads me into two things, guys, as far as the Gears eSports scene, but also just content creation scene in Gears of War as well. And this is something that on my channel, I've certainly wanted to do my part in seeing the growth of Gears as far as content creation is concerned. But man, it just feels that there's not very many people who really stream Gears of War very regularly, as far as, content creators and such. I know when the game first comes out, it's one thing, but just Gears of War 4, it felt like there was almost nobody streaming the game, and that's very hard for a franchise, or more so just for a fan base and for all of that, because I think that there's so much untapped territory there within the Gears of War community, and there's so much potential there as well. So here's what I'm going to say about it, is that I really do believe, guys, that Gears of War as a whole needs to have content creators and such that are making content on YouTube, but also streaming on a consistent basis in order to see the scene continue to grow. Because people in the community, they want to see they want to see the scene grow, but a lot of people aren't willing to do the things necessary to do that. So I look at people like Shadows, and I even there J Motions and Razored Edge and all these different creators, guys, and streamers that are really trying to help see the scene grow and do their part. But the problem is that there's just not enough of those guys that are streaming consistently or making consistent YouTube content. There's just not enough of it, and it's really unfortunate. We need that in Gears of War. If we want to see this franchise flourish over time, we have got to be really echoing those things into existence, as far as echoing that, you know, we want this scene to grow and that we need this scene to grow. And by doing so, or by, you know, by saying that, we're essentially saying that we're going to put more time into streaming, more time into content creation, more time into all these things to see the scene grow over time, because it's going to take more than just a few content creators and a few streamers to really make that difference happen. And I'm not even talking about pro players. I mean, the absolute amount of like potential there is with the Gears of War scene. It's been one of those things I've thought about for a long time, really going all in on the Gears of War streaming and such. But it's been one of those things that I'm not a pro player. And I believe that guys who are pros in Gears of War should be streaming on a consistent basis. I mean, we're talking a lot. Like, play a lot of games. I mean, for real. Like, you know, play just pub matches or doing like tournaments on and streaming those. It's so important, guys, to building a scene out that you are consistently grinding that, you know, that game and streaming it and putting that content up on YouTube. It's so important, and I just don't see much of it. I really don't. I see, like, obviously the content creators are doing that and some of the streamers, but they're pro players. There are not very many people that are pro players that are streaming or creating content on Gears of War on a consistent basis, and it's really sad and it's really frustrating, because I want to see Gears grow just as much as some of these other guys who are passionate about Gears of War. But the problem is that there's just not enough people that are doing it. There's not enough pro players that are streaming games. There's not enough content creators. There's not enough, you know, streamers. And that really hurts a scene so much, especially when you see how much these games, you know, how much they, to so many people, it's a passion for a lot of players out there that are even casual. There are people that are yearning for Gears content. I'm telling you guys, there is a fan base out there for, you know, and there is a following of Gears of War. There is a cult following of people. Is Gears of War as big as Call of Duty? No, of course not. Is it, you know, bigger than some of these other games that are out there, you know, like Fortnite or, you know, all these other games? No, but guess what? That gives you more of an opportunity to be the next big streamer, the next big content creator on YouTube or on Twitch in Gears of War, because there's not that many. I mean, when you really think about it, guys, there are not that many people that are creating this that they're creating content or streaming consistently on Twitch. I mean, I think that there's more of an opportunity actually on Twitch than on YouTube, but I'm just telling you that if we want to see Gears of War continue to grow, we've got to be the ones, you know, streaming and creating content around it, and a lot of it at that. So that leads me into the next thing, which is Gears eSports and how I believe it is incredibly underrated. Now, a couple of things though. Gears of War did, however, as far as the coalition is concerned, and this is kind of, you know, some there is some issues I have with this, because they really didn't get, you know, they weren't really promoting the Pro League within Gears eSports, and they were kind of, you know, utilizing certain ways in which they were trying to get the word out there, but really no one knew about it. I didn't even know about when the times and such when some of these matches were going to be happening, and that is a fault of the coalition on that. And I know Benson, amongst other guys within the Gears community, certainly let the coalition know about it. There is no debate about that. They were absolutely incredibly upset about that, and with good reason. I mean, there's no reason for it, guys. I don't know why the coalition would not be doing other means of trying to get the Pro League out there and you know, kind of spread the word about it. I don't really know about that. But that all being said and set aside, Gears eSports is one of, if not the most underrated esport in the world. I mean, it is a gem amongst esports. I mean, really. I mean, when I look at two esports that I believe should be much larger esports, I look at Gears of War and I look at StarCraft. I mean, these are two games that I feel are just, they're so tactical, there's a lot of strategy behind them, and they're so much fun to watch. And the trash talk in Gears of War, I mean, it is next to none. I mean, it is so specific to this esport, but it's just amazing. It's such a breath of fresh air. that the coalition allows, the players to talk trash to one another, and it's such a cool environment. But man, guys, like, I just want to see Gears grow, man. And the coalition, to all of you guys over the coalition, that if you guys are watching this, like, please, like, I understand that, there's barriers here, and we all have to understand this, with microtransactions, with anything that is revolving around this game. There is going to be the higher ups over at Microsoft that are, obviously swaying or telling what the coalition has to do with certain things, whether that's microtransactions or whatnot, or a budget as far as what they have for advertising. But we need, I think what the coalition needs to do is give more incentive to streamers who want to stream, Gears of War, or more incentive for for players to want to continue playing the game, whether that's adding new items that you get from re-upping, or adding the wings or the cool emblems to re-upping on Gears of War like it was in the past, or whatever it might be, more perks and such to creating content on YouTube. Those are things, guys, that I really think the coalition needs to do in order for it to become a massive juggernaut of a game, which I believe full-heartedly it is it's an incredible game, and it should be a much bigger game than it is right now. It's very sad. It's very sad, guys, that it's not bigger than what it is. And I'm just hoping that we as a community can really come together and put our heads together. And whether that's creating content on YouTube, I'm going to do my part, guys. I'm going to try to do my part on the YouTube front, as well as, stream every once in a while, or uploading, live streams on my second YouTube channel, which is, and that's another place where I can try to generate some traffic for Gears of War. But guys, just support the people within the community that you enjoy watching, because every viewer counts. Every view on YouTube counts. That all helps. We got to work together. We as a community have to work together. We have to, voice our opinion and echo the things that we want into existence with the coalition. So let's do it, guys. Look, let's make Gears of War one of the biggest games in the world, and I believe that we can do it full-heartedly. It takes a grind, it takes persistence, it takes all those things with any game, but I think that we as a community have to support those in the community that are, really trying to make an effort to make the game bigger. And like Benson did, like voicing his opinion against the coalition and such, those are things that need to happen in order for a game to continue growing, and for sometimes a developer needs to be called out just so that they kind of get their shit together. We have to be called out by, maybe the coalition, like, look, you guys need to be creating more content. You guys need to be streaming more. Those are things that we need that they could easily do for us, because in order for us to make their game bigger and to do a better job, it takes all of us, guys. It's a group effort here. So I just hope that we will do that in the future. And let's make it happen. Let's echo the things that we want into existence with Gears of War. Make Gears eSports one of the greatest eSports in the world. And just, obviously a niche eSport, but one of the best at the very least. And it's just the trash talk, all those things. Please, coalition, continue what you're doing with the eSports side of things. Just promote it more. Let's get this thing bigger. Let's make it huge. Let's do it. This leads me into the next thing, guys, on the show, which, since obviously coming off of talking about Gears eSports and what the content creators and such need to do in order to continue the growth of the Gears scene, I want to take a moment and talk about the best Gears player ever, or players ever. And my opinion on these things, guys, as to who I believe the best Gears of War player is currently and who I think the greatest ever is, because I will say this, that when we talk about the teams, and there have been a number of great teams within the Gears of War community, but I gotta say, guys, there's one that really stands out, and that's the team that was assembled with Optic Gaming, and then of course now with Energy, and they were even a part of, I think it was Team Tox Gaming. And this team, guys, headed up by who I believe is the greatest player in all of Gears of War history, as in the form of Explosive. This is a guy who has really gone to that next level. And he is really, I believe, a real leader within an esports team. And within Gears of War, I would love to see, you know, other teams really step up to the challenge against this team, because they are just so dominant. I mean, we look at this core between, you know, summons, explosive, and mental, and those three are kind of like the core, and then pretty much the other two players that they have around them, just because of those three, that's why I believe they're the greatest, like, trio in Gears history. But that being said, I just think that even having two other guys who are good players, they can win. And I've only seen them win probably twice ever. I mean, I remember seeing them lose to Envy once, and then they lost to, was it Denial, or was it, I forget who the other team was that I saw them lose to in a tournament, but man, they are so consistent. It is unbelievable. This is a team, guys, that I believe is going to dominate in Gears 5. I mean, as a whole, they're going to continue dominating Gears 5, and I believe, you know, even moving into the future here, this is just a team that is going to be a force to be reckoned with, and I believe one of the greatest esports teams all time. I mean, these guys could be the winningest esports players ever. Like, I mean, and I don't know if there's anyone who can argue it, because they are that good. I know when we look at games like Call of Duty, you look at Crim6, I believe he's won 33 times, 33 championships. You look at Karma, how many times he's won? He's won 3, you know, world championships. I look at a lot of these different guys, right? And I know Gears of War doesn't have a world championship, and I would love to see that. I would love to see them have like a regular season, a playoffs, and then a championship. Let me know what you guys think about that, if you guys would want to see that. But anyways, I just believe, guys, that this team has the opportunity, the potential, explosive mental summons have the potential to be the winningest esports players all time. And I think that they could take it by a wide margin. I mean, they could really continue stacking championships. And I mean, now that they're on energy, I mean, I think the sky's the limit for these guys. I mean, they're just great. Even from top to bottom, I mean, even look at Ashes, who is their coach. What an incredible coach, man. Like, I mean, just overall, this team is dominant. And I believe that there's other teams out there that could certainly challenge them, maybe for a tournament, maybe, you know, but is there anyone else who's going to step up to the challenge? And that's something that I would love to, the narratives around that. Are we going to see that in the future? That is something that has been kind of, I've been wondering about, but I really think it's all headed up by explosive. The motivation of this guy's unreal. I mean, he is fueled by certain things. When other teams are winning rounds in escalation, he gets fueled by seeing the other team talking shit. Like, you can't teach that. That's something that just comes to you. It's a God-given ability, and he is an absolute force to be reckoned with. I think the team as a whole is dominant, and I believe that they're going to dominate throughout the course of Gears 5, and maybe even into the future, even past that. And that's crazy to say, but I really do believe, guys, it started with Gears of War 4. I mean, really, a lot of people will say that it started with Gears Ultimate Edition, but I think it started with Gears of War 4, moving into Gears 5, and probably into Gears 6, maybe even into Gears 7. I mean, it's so hard to say, but I believe, guys, that the best player ever on Gears of War that I've seen, okay, is without a doubt explosive. This guy is, because all around, he's won championships, he's a great leader, and on top of all of that, guys, I mean, this guy can slay like no other. I mean, this guy is a very, you know, he can slay, he can be a support. I mean, whatever you need him to do, he can do it. And that's what I think makes him so good. And his trash talk is great too, because he can back it up. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, really, he has done such a phenomenal job, and I'm hoping for nothing but success for them. But this is more of a segment where I want to try to fuel the rest of the Gears community, because it's like, look, these are guys who are on the throne and have been on the throne for a long time. And the other pros in the community, they may have been able to take the throne for one tournament or, you know, for a portion of time. But these guys have been on that throne for so long. Is there any team out there that can dethrone them? And, you know, do they realistically think they can, if they do beat them, are they going to be able to do it consistently? Because that's the biggest thing, is the transitions and the change-ups that you see out of this energy team, is that if they lose, they figure it out. And then, they move forward and they kind of go from there. And they know that they're better than everyone else. They just got to play like it, and they will win. So that's what's going to be interesting, seeing the up-and-comers in Gears 5. Are we going to see other teams come out that are going to start taking over the scene by storm? That will be something that will be very interesting in the future. But I know with the open events and such, I'm sure there's going to be some dark horse teams that are going to be going through the brackets and getting closer and closer to taking on energy. I just don't know if anyone can do it at this point, guys. I mean, energy is so good. But let me know what you guys think. Who do you guys think is the best and greatest Gears player of all time? Let me know what you guys think. I would love to hear from you guys regarding that. I'm going to go explosive. What say you? Our last segment of the day, guys, is going to be a question in which I really want to pass on to you guys after I give you all my opinion on it. And that is, will the Gears of War series end with Gears 7? And so obviously, guys, we have confirmed from Rod Ferguson, the studio head over at the Coalition, stating that Gears 6 and Gears 7 are confirmed, as well as a Gears of War film or movie that are all going to be coming out in the future. That being said, okay, will it end with Gear 7? Because this is like a new trilogy, and they're talking like Gear 7 is that next I guess you could say Gear 6 and then Gear 7 is the new trilogy. What can we expect though? And will it be the end of Gears of War as we know it from that point onwards? And here's what I think, guys. I actually wouldn't be surprised if the story ends, obviously, with Gear 7, but they continue to update and continue over the course of years to come. They continue to mold the multiplayer as well as the esports side in the future. But see, it's all up to us, guys, and this is getting back to my earlier segment where I was talking about how content creators and streamers need to be making as much content as possible and streaming as much as they possibly can of Gears 5, because what's happening right now is we're laying a foundation for the future of Gears of War. So because the thing is if things continue the way they're going right now, after what happened with Gears of War 4, which there was like just almost nobody streaming the game very much, and then, we get to Gears 5, and once again, we're kind of back to that same area where it's like not very many people are streaming or creating content at this point. When you get to Gear 6 and then to Gear 7, what could happen is we could have a breakthrough where it's like, man, we're able to, we're really building momentum off of the content and off of the streams and such. By the time you get to Gear 7, the Coalition just decides, and Microsoft, they decide, let's just continue making content after this, as far as maybe you stick with Gear 7, but you continue supporting the esports side, you continue supporting, the game as a whole, and it will be looked upon as one of the greatest franchises of all time, which I think it already is, but I think that replayability and all of that, like sustainability, comes from the community, and I think that we as a community have to be, really helping the Coalition with those things, kind of laying that foundation and moving into Gear 6 and then into Gear 7. But, will the series end with that? I do believe it will. I believe it will end with Gear 7 because that's 7 games. And I'm not saying that there's other franchises out there that have gone, past 7 games, obviously. You look at Final Fantasy and Call of Duty and, just a number of games out there. But I do think that if you continued doing that with Gears of War, I feel that there's a potential that it may very well, I don't know, get kind of stale. It may just feel like they're just really milking the IP. I mean, I guess we could say the same for Halo, because they're coming, with Halo Infinite, and, what are they going to continue, like, doing a whole new trilogy with Halo? There's possibility. Obviously, we're on Halo 5 right now, so, they're making more games, so maybe they continue, after 7. I just don't know. I feel like it will end, at least the campaign or the story mode is concerned. Could they go back or go to side stories and all of that? I definitely think they could. What I'd like to see personally is after Gear 7, they do, like, expansions or something along those lines where they add on to the story, but they also add new maps. They add, maybe some new weapons, maybe some, things of that nature, where it's helping to continue supporting the game, where, the esports side as well as the, just the casual gamer side when it comes to Gears of War. I would like to see those things in the future. But I will say this, guys, I don't believe that there will be, after Gear 7, a Gears of War 8. I just don't really see that happening. I think that they will end it with Gear 7, and they will maybe continue by doing like, expansions and such, like I was mentioning earlier. But I would love to hear from all of you guys. What do you guys think about Gears of War 7? Do you guys think that that's going to be the end of it? Or do you think that it'll end up ending earlier than that? Because I know they've confirmed Gear 6 and Gear 7, but I'm afraid that if, we continue in the way in which we're going, it may end in Gear 6. And I hope that's not the case. But guys, we got to be the ones that are really pushing Gears of War out to the masses. And that's a very important thing. And I think it starts with pro players. It starts with streamers. It starts with content creators and YouTubers. I mean, it's just something that we got to do. And like I said, guys, I want to do my part in helping with that. I'm not the best when it comes to playing the game, but I love talking about the game. So, and I would love to have other guys from the community on the show with us. That'd be Shadows, as well as some of the other creators, guys, whether that's Moo Moo Milk or Landon or Razored Edge, J Motions. There's a number of guys I would love to have on the show to talk about Gears of War. Let's try to make this thing massive, guys. Let's try to push Gears of War to a number of people out there. I think it would be a very good idea for us. And I would love to invite Rod Ferguson onto the show, as well as a number of other people over at the Coalition that would, I would love to just talk to you guys and kind of get a feel from the developers as to, kind of that being transparent with one another, as far as from someone who's in the community versus someone on the other side who's helping develop a game and trying to make it better for us. I would love to have those conversations, guys. Let me know who you guys would like to see on the show with us in the future for future Gears of War episodes within that of the 8 Below show. Thank you so much for watching the show, guys. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. And if you did, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, stay positive, and as always, I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.